Princess Kalara stood at the tall window of her chamber, watching the twin moons rise over the crystal spires of the Velthoran capital. Her purple skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, and her silver eyes reflected the distant stars. She was 28 cycles old, which made her young by Velthoran standards, but old enough to understand the weight of duty that came with royal blood. Behind her, she could hear the soft footsteps of her mother, Empress Zivera, entering the room. Kylara did not turn around. She knew why her mother had come. "Your sister Melanthe has given birth to her second child," the Empress said gently. "The entire court celebrates." "That is wonderful news," Kylara replied, still gazing at the stars. "Yes, please send her my blessings." "You could deliver them yourself if you attended the celebration," her mother suggested. There was no anger in her voice, only a quiet sadness that Kylara had heard many times before. Kylara finally turned to face her mother. The Empress was elegant and powerful, her ceremonial robes flowing like liquid starlight. But Kylara could see the concern in her eyes. "Mother, we both know that celebrations are not simply celebrations in this palace. They are opportunities for the council to parade potential husbands before me." The Empress sighed. "Kylara, my dear child, not all marriages are prisons. Your father and I found genuine affection over time." "Over time," Kylara repeated. "After you were joined for political reasons. After you had no choice." She shook her head. I watched Melanthe cry for 3 months after her wedding. I watched Sorella become a stranger to herself, molding her personality to please her husband's family. I made a vow, Mother. I will never marry. "Never is a long time for someone who will live 400 years, the Empress said softly. "Then I have plenty of time to be happy alone," Kylara answered. "I have my work. The diplomatic service gives me purpose. I do not need a husband to feel complete." The Empress studied her daughter for a long moment. Then she smiled slightly. "Speaking of your diplomatic work, I have news. The Council has approved your request." Kylara's eyes widened with surprise and hope. "Truly? They are letting me lead the negotiations?" "Yes. You will be our chief ambassador to the humans. Their delegation arrives in 3 days." Joy and relief flooded through Kylara. For months, she had been requesting this assignment. Humanity was a newly contacted species, discovered only 2 years ago on the far edge of known space. They were strange creatures, soft-skinned and short-lived, but their civilization showed remarkable advancement despite their youth. The Council had been debating whether to establish formal relations with them. "Thank you, Mother," Kylara said, embracing the Empress. "This means everything to me." "I know it does, which is precisely why the Council opposed it at first. They worry you use your work to avoid your responsibilities." "My responsibility is to serve the Empire," Kylara said firmly. "I can do that without becoming someone's wife." The Empress kissed her daughter's forehead. "We shall see. I'm my determined child. We shall see." 3 days later, Kylara stood in the grand reception hall of the Imperial Palace. The room was enormous, with ceilings so high they seemed to touch the sky. Columns of pure crystal rose from the polished floor, and holographic displays showed the vastness of the Velthoran Empire across 100 star systems. Beside Kylara stood her diplomatic team, Chancellor Vornis, a stern old male who disapproved of her informality, Minister Lysa, who had trained Kylara in negotiation techniques, and Captain Jen, who commanded the palace guard. They all wore formal robes of state, their colors indicating their ranks and houses. "Remember, Your Highness," Vornis said in his gravelly voice, "these humans are unpredictable. They have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. We must be cautious about appearing too eager for alliance." "I understand, Chancellor," Kylara replied. "But we must also remember that dismissing them could create future enemies. Better to extend friendship now." "Wisdom beyond your years," Lisa said with approval. The great doors opened with a low musical chime. The human delegation entered, and Kylara felt her breath catch slightly. She had seen images of humans before, but seeing them in person was different. They were so small compared to Velthorans, barely reaching her shoulder. Their skin was various shades of brown and pink, not purple like her people. They had only 2 eyes instead of the 3 that Velthorans possessed. But what struck Kalara most was how they moved. There was an energy to them, a quickness that her people did not have. They seemed to vibrate with life, nor even though their lifespans were tragically brief compared to Velthorans. The delegation was led by a human male with dark brown skin and kind eyes. He was dressed in simple but elegant clothing, dark blue with subtle silver threading. Unlike the others in his group who wore what appeared to be military uniforms or formal suits, his attire was understated. He approached with confidence but not arrogance, and when he reached the appropriate distance, he bowed in the Velthoran style. Someone had taught him well. "Your Imperial Majesty, Your Highness, honored council members," he said in perfectly accented Velthoran. "I am Daniel Cooper, representing the United Earth Coalition. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to build understanding between our peoples." Kalara stepped forward. "Welcome to Velthora Prime, Daniel Cooper of Earth. I am Princess Kalara, and I will be your primary contact during these negotiations. We are pleased to receive you." As Daniel raised his head from the bow, their eyes met. Kalara expected to see calculation there, or perhaps fear, or the usual mix of emotions that people showed when meeting royalty. Instead, she saw genuine curiosity and warmth. He smiled at her, not the practiced smile of courtiers, but something real and unguarded. "Thank you, Your Highness," he said. "I look forward to learning about your remarkable civilization." Something in his voice made Kalara pause. He had not said he looked forward to the negotiations, or to forming an alliance, or to any of the usual diplomatic phrases. He wanted to learn, to understand. It was refreshing. "Perhaps we could begin with a tour of the palace gardens," Kalara suggested, diverging from the planned schedule. "I find that formal meetings are less productive than simple conversation." Vornis coughed disapprovingly, but Kalara ignored him. Daniel's smile widened. "I would enjoy that very much. I studied xenobotany before entering diplomatic service. I am fascinated by how different worlds produce such varied plant life." "A scientist turned diplomat?" Kalara asked, surprised. "Sometimes the best diplomacy is understanding how things grow," Daniel replied. For the first time in years, Kalara felt genuinely interested in getting to know someone. Not because duty required it, but because she wanted to. The feeling was both exciting and terrifying. As she led the human delegation toward the gardens, Kalara told herself this was simply professional curiosity. Nothing more. Her vow remained firm, but somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that perhaps never was not as permanent as she had believed. The formal negotiations began the next morning in the council chamber, a vast circular room with walls that displayed the stars of known space. Kalara sat at the head of the Velthoran delegation, with Chancellor Vornis on her right and Minister Lysa on her left. Across the wide table sat the human team, with Daniel Cooper at their center. The first few hours went smoothly. Both sides discussed basic trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. But when the topic shifted to territorial matters, tension filled the room. "The Kepler corridor contains 17 systems that humanity has already begun surveying," said Commander Patricia Grant, one of Daniel's team members. She was a stern woman with gray hair and a military bearing. "We cannot simply abandon our colonization efforts because the Velthoran Empire claims historical rights to that space." Chancellor Vornis bristled. "Historical rights that date back 3,000 years. Your species has barely left your homeworld. You cannot expect us to yield territory simply because you arrived recently and planted flags." "We planted more than flags," Patricia said sharply. "We have research stations, mining operations, and families living in those systems." The argument continued, growing more heated. Kalara watched Daniel carefully. Unlike the others, he remained quiet, his expression thoughtful rather than defensive. He was studying a holographic map of the disputed region, his fingers moving through the display to examine different angles. Finally, Daniel raised his hand. "May I suggest something?" The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. "The Kepler corridor is rich in resources, yes, but what makes it truly valuable are the 12 planets with conditions suitable for agriculture. Both our peoples need food production for our growing populations." He manipulated the holographic display, highlighting certain systems. What if, instead of dividing the corridor, we shared it? Vornis frowned. Shared? How exactly? Joint colonies, Daniel explained. Humans and Velthorans working together on agricultural worlds. We share farming techniques, combine our knowledge, and both species benefit from increased food production. The research stations and mining operations can be similarly coordinated rather than duplicated. Preposterous, Vornis said immediately. Yes, our people have never shared colony worlds with another species. Perhaps that is why you should start now, Daniel replied calmly. On Earth, we learned a difficult lesson. For centuries, we fought over resources, divided by nations and ideologies. We nearly destroyed ourselves. What saved us was learning to grow together instead of competing for limited space. Kilara leaned forward, intrigued. Tell me more about this philosophy, Daniel Cooper. Daniel met her eyes, and again she felt that strange warmth in his gaze. We have a saying on Earth. A garden grows stronger when different plants support each other. Corn, beans, and squash, we plant them together. The corn provides a structure for beans to climb. The beans add nutrients to the soil. The squash covers the ground and keeps weeds away. Alone, each plant survives. Together, they thrive. A pretty metaphor, Vornis said dismissively. But colonies are not vegetables. No, Daniel agreed. They are far more important, which is why we should treat them with even greater care. He turned to Kilara. Your Highness, I understand this requires trust. Perhaps we could start with one experimental colony. If it succeeds, we expand the program. If it fails, we return to traditional negotiations. Kilara considered this. The idea was radical, possibly even dangerous. But there was something compelling about it. We will discuss your proposal, she said. This session is adjourned until tomorrow. That evening, Kilara found herself unable to sleep. She walked through the palace corridors, her mind churning with thoughts of territories and treaties. Without consciously planning it, she ended up in the palace library, a favorite refuge from childhood. She was surprised to find she was not alone. Daniel Cooper sat at one of the reading tables, surrounded by data tablets displaying information about Velthoran culture and history. Your Highness, he said, standing quickly and bowing. I apologize, I did not mean to intrude. The library is open to all guests, Kilara said. Please, sit. You are studying our history? Trying to understand it, Daniel admitted. I believe good diplomacy requires more than knowing what someone wants. You must understand why they want it. Kilara sat across from him. And what have you learned about why we want things? Daniel smiled. That Velthorans value legacy and continuity. Your empire has existed for millennia. Every decision is made with consideration for how it will affect the next 1,000 years. It is admirable, but also somewhat... He paused, searching for the right word. Inflexible? Kilara suggested. I was going to say careful, Daniel replied diplomatically. But yes, perhaps inflexible as well. And humans are different? Very different. We live such short lives compared to you. 80, maybe 100 years if we are fortunate. So we think in generations rather than millennia. We take risks because we do not have centuries to wait for perfect solutions. He looked at her curiously. May I ask you something personal, Your Highness? Kilara, she said. When we are alone, you may call me Kilara. Kilara, he repeated, and she liked how her name sounded in his accent. Why did you volunteer to lead these negotiations? I sense it is about more than diplomatic interest. She hesitated, and then decided honesty might build the trust they needed. I wanted to escape, if I am being truthful. The court constantly pressures me to marry, to form political alliances through matrimony. I made a vow never to do so. Daniel's expression grew sympathetic. I understand more than you might think. I was married once. My wife, Lisa, she died from a genetic illness 5 years ago. After she passed, my family and friends kept trying to arrange meetings with eligible women. They meant well, but I was not ready. Perhaps we'll never be ready. I am sorry for your loss, Kilara said softly. And I am sorry for the pressure you face, Daniel replied. Though our situations are different. You reject marriage because you watched others suffer in political arrangements. I avoid it because I already found love once, and I cannot imagine finding it again. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Kalara asked, "What was she like? Your Lisa?" Daniel's face brightened with memory. She was a botanist like me. We met in university. She could make anything grow, even in the harshest conditions. She used to say that life always finds a way if you give it the right support. His smile faded slightly. She was the one who developed the agricultural techniques I mentioned today, the joint planting philosophy. It was her dream to share it with the galaxy. Then your proposal today was honoring her memory, Kalara said. In a way, yes, but it is also just good sense. Competition wastes resources. Cooperation multiplies them. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing from politics to philosophy to personal stories. Ma Kalara found herself laughing at Daniel's descriptions of human customs, and he listened with genuine fascination as she explained Velthoran traditions. When the palace bells chimed the third hour past midnight, they both looked surprised at how much time had passed. I should let you rest, Daniel said, standing reluctantly. Yes, Kalara agreed, though part of her wanted to continue talking. Tomorrow we must present your proposal to my mother and the full council. Do you think they will accept it? Daniel asked. I do not know, Kalara admitted, but I will support it. Your idea has merit, and more importantly, it has heart. That is something my people sometimes forget to consider. As Daniel left the library, Kalara remained sitting, her thoughts confused and scattered, while she had enjoyed this evening more than any social interaction in recent memory. Daniel treated her as a person, not as a princess or a potential political asset. He shared his grief and his dreams with openness that was rare in the careful world of Velthoran court. It was dangerous, she realized. Dangerous to like someone this much. Dangerous to feel this connection. But as she finally returned to her chambers, Kalara found herself looking forward to tomorrow in a way she had not anticipated. Not because of the negotiations, but because it meant seeing Daniel again. Her vow, she reminded herself firmly. She had made a vow. Yet somehow, that vow felt less solid than it had just 2 days ago. The council meeting lasted 6 hours. Kalara presented Daniel's proposal for joint agricultural colonies, explaining the benefits and addressing every concern. Chancellor Vornis raised objections about security risks. Minister Lysa questioned the logistics of mixing 2 species on single worlds. The military advisors worried about strategic vulnerabilities. Through it all, Empress Zyvera listened silently from her throne, her expression unreadable. Finally, Daniel was allowed to speak directly to the council. He stood before the most powerful leaders of the Velthoran Empire with calm confidence, explaining his vision of cooperation. He showed data from Earth's history, examples of how collaboration had saved humanity from extinction after the climate wars. We nearly destroyed our planet through competition and greed, Daniel said. Every nation wanted more resources, more territory, more power. We poisoned our oceans, burned our forests, and turned fertile land into desert. Billions suffered. Then we learned a simple truth. We only have one Earth. We had to share it or lose it completely. He displayed images of Earth as it had been during the wars, scarred and damaged. Then he showed Earth as it was now, restored and thriving. This recovery took 100 years of cooperation. Nations that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together. We shared technology, resources, and knowledge. Now Earth feeds 20 billion people and supports ecosystems we almost lost forever. The council members murmured among themselves. Even Vornis looked grudgingly impressed. Empress Zyvera finally spoke. Your words carry wisdom, Daniel Cooper of Earth. We will approve one experimental colony in the Kepler corridor. If it succeeds after one full cycle, we will consider expanding the program. Kalara felt relief flood through her. It was a beginning. Over the following weeks, Kalara and Daniel worked closely together, planning the details of the joint colony. They met daily, often in the palace gardens that Kalara loved. The gardens were filled with plants from across the Velthoran Empire, thousands of species in carefully designed harmony. "This is my favorite place in the entire palace," Kalara admitted one afternoon as they walked beneath trees with silver leaves that sang in the wind. "When I was young, I would hide here for hours. The gardeners knew where to find me, but pretended they did not." Daniel smiled. "It reminds me of the botanical gardens near my university. Lisa and I used to study there." He paused beside a flowering bush with blue blossoms. Or, what is this one called? Thessar bloom. It only flowers once every 10 years. We are fortunate to see it now. Kalara reached out and gently touched one of the delicate petals. "My grandmother planted this bush 200 years ago. She said it taught patience." 200 years, Daniel repeated softly. "My entire species only developed agriculture 12,000 years ago. Your grandmother's planting is a tiny fraction of your lifespan, but it represents multiple generations of human existence." "Does it bother you?" Kalara asked. "That Velthorans live so much longer?" "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. "Mostly it makes me value time differently. Every moment matters more when you have fewer of them." He looked at her with an intensity that made her heart beat faster. "So, that is why I try not to waste time on things that do not matter, and why I invest fully in things that do." Before Kalara could respond, her younger brother Petrin came running down the garden path. He was only 15 cycles old, still gangly and excitable in the way of young Velthorans. "Kalara, Mother is looking for you. There is some emergency about the colony supply shipments." Then he noticed Daniel, and his eyes widened with curiosity. "You are the human diplomat. Is it true you can hold your breath for only 3 minutes, and that you need to eat 3 times every single day?" Daniel laughed. "Both true, I am afraid. We are quite fragile compared to Velthorans." "Petrin, do not be rude," Kalara scolded, but she was smiling. "I am not being rude. I am curious. We are studying Earth biology in my science class. Did you really bring samples of Earth plants with you?" "I did," Daniel said. "Would you like to see them?" Petrin's face lit up. "Truly? That would be amazing." Kalara expected Daniel to make an excuse or postpone, but instead he said, "I have some time now if your sister can spare me." "Go," Kalara said. "I will handle the supply issues. Petrin will talk your ear off about botany for hours if you let him." "I look forward to it," Daniel said, and she could tell he meant it. She watched them walk away together, Petrin chattering excitedly while Daniel listened with genuine interest. Something warm bloomed in her chest. Daniel did not have to be kind to her brother. It gained him no political advantage. He did it simply because Petrin was enthusiastic and curious, and Daniel valued those qualities. Later that evening, Kalara found Daniel in one of the smaller courtyards, still talking with Petrin. They had spread out data tablets and were comparing Earth and Velthoran plant structures. "And this is a tomato," Daniel was explaining. "On Earth, there was a big debate about whether it was a fruit or a vegetable. But it has seeds," Petrin said. "So obviously it is a fruit." That is what botanists said. But cooks insisted it was a vegetable because of how it tastes and how they used it in meals. The debate went all the way to our highest courts. "You took a plant to court?" Petrin asked, delighted. "We take everything to court," Daniel said with a laugh. "Humans love to argue about categories." Kalara cleared her throat and both looked up. "Petrin, it is past your study time. You need to go." Her brother groaned but gathered his things. "Thank you. I'm Daniel. This was the best afternoon I have had in months." "Anytime," Daniel said warmly. "You ask excellent questions." After Petrin left, Kalara sat down beside Daniel. "You did not have to spend your entire afternoon teaching my brother about tomatoes." "I wanted to. He reminds me of myself at that age, full of questions and excitement about the universe." Daniel began organizing the scattered tablets. "Besides, I think I learned as much from him as he did from me. His perspective on cross-species pollination was fascinating." "You are kind to say so," Kalara said, "but I know Petrin can be exhausting." "Not exhausting, energizing." Daniel looked at her seriously. "Kalara, can I ask you something? Why did you make your vow never to marry?" The question caught her off guard. I told you, and I watched my sisters suffer in political marriages. Yes, but there is more to it, I think. You are not just avoiding political marriage. You are avoiding all marriage. Why? Kalara was silent for a long moment. Finally, she said, because I saw what happened when love was not part of the equation. My sisters tried to develop affection for their husbands after the weddings. Sometimes it worked, partially. Sometimes it did not. But always, I saw them change. They made themselves smaller, quieter, different. They adjusted their personalities to fit what was expected of them. And you fear losing yourself, Daniel said softly. Yes. I have spent my life becoming who I am. I do not want to trade that away for political advantage or family expectations. She looked at him. Is that selfish? No, Daniel said firmly. It is honest. Why you deserve to choose your own path. He hesitated, then added, but sometimes the right partner does not make you smaller. They help you become more fully yourself. Is that how it was with your Lisa? Yes. She challenged me to be better, braver, more open. I did the same for her. We grew together, like those companion plants I mentioned, each one stronger because of the other. Kalara felt something shift inside her chest. She had been so focused on avoiding the wrong relationship that she had never considered what the right relationship might look like. Daniel, she began, then stopped. She did not know how to finish the sentence. What could she say? That she found herself thinking about him constantly? That she looked forward to their meetings with an eagerness that frightened her? Or that she was beginning to question everything she thought she knew about her own heart? Yes, he prompted gently. I am glad you're here, she said finally. Not just for the negotiations, for this, the conversations, the time together. I have not felt this comfortable with someone in years. Daniel smiled, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. I feel the same way. These past weeks have been special. They sat together as the sky darkened and the stars emerged, neither speaking but both aware of something growing between them. Something neither had expected or planned for. Something that made Kalara's vow feel like a wall she had built to protect herself, but which now trapped her inside. The emergency message arrived at dawn. A disease outbreak had struck the border colony of Thesson Major, affecting both human and Velthoran settlers who had been working together on preliminary survey operations. The illness caused severe respiratory distress and high fever, and it was spreading rapidly. Kalara was in a council meeting when the news came. Daniel was present as well, discussing final preparations for the official joint colony launch. When the medical officer finished his grim report, silence filled the room. We must quarantine the entire colony, Chancellor Vornis declared. Send medical supplies but no personnel. We cannot risk the infection spreading. Those people will die without direct help, Daniel said sharply. The report says the illness progresses quickly. They need doctors and researchers on site, not just supplies dropped from orbit. And if those doctors become infected? Vornis challenged. Then we lose both the colonists and our medical experts. Daniel stood up. I am going to Thesson Major. I have medical training and experience with infectious diseases from my work during Earth's pandemic years. I can help. Absolutely not, Vornis said. You are the head of the human delegation. We cannot allow you to risk yourself. You cannot allow? Daniel's voice was calm but firm. With respect, Chancellor, I am not asking permission. I am informing you of my decision. Kalara felt fear grip her heart. The thought of Daniel putting himself in danger made her want to forbid him from going. But she had no right to do that. And more importantly, she understood why he had to go. I will accompany him, she announced. The room erupted in protests. Her mother stood from her throne, her face showing rare alarm. Kalara, no. So this is not necessary. It is necessary, Mother. This colony represents the future of our alliance with humanity. If we abandon these people now, we prove that cooperation only matters when it is convenient and safe. I must go. Your Highness, please reconsider, Minister Lisa pleaded. You are third in line to the throne. Your loss would be devastating. Then perhaps my sister should have more children, Kalara said. I have made my decision. 6 hours later, Kalara and Daniel boarded a fast medical ship along with a team of doctors and scientists from both species. The journey to Thesson Major took 2 days. During that time, they studied everything known about the disease, searching for patterns and possible treatments. The symptoms are similar to Velthoran crystal fever, one of the Velthoran doctors observed. But crystal fever does not affect humans. And it resembles human viral pneumonia, a human doctor added, but that should not affect Velthorans. Daniel and Kalara worked side by side, examining data and running simulations. They barely slept, surviving on stimulants and determination. Late on the second night, Kalara found herself nodding off over her data tablet. "Rest," Daniel said gently. "I will continue working." "No, we work together," Kalara insisted, but her eyes were closing. Daniel smiled and guided her to a sleeping pod. "Just 2 hours, then you can relieve me, and I will rest." She wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. As she drifted off, she felt Daniel drape a blanket over her, and his hand briefly touched her shoulder. The gesture was small, but it filled her with warmth. When they arrived at Thesson Major, where the situation was worse than reported, 43 people were seriously ill, 12 were in critical condition. The colony's small medical facility was overwhelmed. Kalara and Daniel immediately began working with patients. They took samples, ran tests, and compared notes with the medical teams. Hours blurred together as they fought to understand the disease. On the third day, Daniel made a breakthrough. "Look at this," he called to Kalara, showing her a molecular analysis. The pathogen is not purely Velthoran or human in origin. It is a hybrid, something that emerged when our two biologies came into close contact. A hybrid illness? Kalara studied the data. That should not be possible, but it is happening. Our immune systems have never encountered each other before. When humans and Velthorans work in close proximity, we exchange microorganisms. Most are harmless, but this one mutated. It took characteristics from both a Velthoran fungal spore and a human virus. Kalara felt a chill. If that is true, then traditional treatments will not work. We need something new. "We need to combine our medical knowledge," Daniel said. "Velthoran antifungal compounds mixed with human antiviral proteins." They worked frantically, testing combinations in the laboratory. Failure after failure mounted. Kalara felt desperation growing. People were dying. Every hour brought more critical cases. Finally, on the 5th day, they found a formula that worked in laboratory conditions. A Velthoran enzyme that broke down fungal cell walls, combined with a human-developed protein that prevented viral replication. Together, they attacked both aspects of the hybrid pathogen. We need to test it on a patient," Kalara said. "I will volunteer," Daniel said immediately. "You are not infected," Kalara pointed out. "Not yet, but exposure is inevitable. If the treatment has side effects, better to discover them on me than on someone already critically ill." "No," Kalara said firmly. "We tested on the patients who are stable enough to handle potential complications. That is the proper medical protocol." Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. "You are right." The first patient they treated was a young Velthoran woman named Sella. She had been sick for 4 days and was deteriorating rapidly. They administered the experimental treatment and waited. 6 hours later, Sella's fever broke. Her breathing eased. The crystalline rash that marked the infection began to fade. "Nay, it is working," Kalara whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Over the next 2 days, they treated all 43 patients. 39 recovered fully. 3 remained weak but stable. Only one, an elderly human man whose heart had been damaged before treatment began, did not survive. When the crisis finally ended, Kalara found Daniel sitting alone outside the medical facility, watching the sun set over the colony. She sat beside him, so exhausted she could barely think. "We saved them," she said quietly. "Most of them," Daniel replied. "I keep thinking about Samuel, the man who died. He was 78 years old, had 3 children and 8 grandchildren. He came here because he believed in the colony, in cooperation between our species. His belief was not wrong," Kalara said. "We proved that today. We combined our knowledge and created something neither species could have developed alone. Daniel turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw something that made her heart race. Kalara, these past days, working with you, seeing your dedication and brilliance, I need to tell you something. Wait, Kalara said, though part of her desperately wanted to hear what he would say. Before you speak, I must tell you about my vow. I swore never to marry because I saw marriage as a trap, a loss of self. But working with you, I have realized something. What? Daniel asked softly. That I was afraid. Not of marriage itself, but of losing control of my own life. Of being forced into something I did not choose. She took a deep breath. But choosing to care for someone is different from being forced. I find that I am choosing to care for you. Daniel reached out and took her hand. His skin was warm against hers, and the touch sent electricity through her. I care for you too. More than I thought I could care for anyone again after Lisa. You are brilliant and brave and kind. You challenge me to be better. And I think I am falling in love with you. Kalara felt tears in her eyes. I think I am falling in love with you too, and it terrifies me. It terrifies me as well, Daniel admitted. You will live for centuries after I am gone. How can I ask you to love someone who will leave you so soon? We cannot know the future, Kalara said, but we have now, and now feels precious. They sat together, hands clasped, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Neither knew what tomorrow would bring, but for this moment, they had each other, and that was enough. When Kalara and Daniel returned to the Velthoran capital, they expected celebration for saving the colony. Instead, they found the palace filled with tension and whispers. The court had noticed the bond between the princess and the human diplomat, and opinions were sharply divided. Empress Zyvera summoned Kalara to her private chambers the evening of their return. The room was elegant and quiet, filled with artifacts from centuries of rule. The Empress stood by the window, her back to her daughter. You love him, she said, without preamble. It was not a question. Kalara could have denied it, could have claimed it was merely friendship or professional respect. But she was tired of hiding. Yes, mother, I do. The Empress turned, and Kalara was surprised to see not anger in her face, but sadness. I had hoped you would find happiness on your own terms. I did not expect you would find it with someone whose life is so brief. Neither did I, Kalara admitted. I fought against it. My vow, my plans, everything I believed about myself said this was wrong. But love does not follow plans, does it? No, her mother agreed softly. It does not. Tell me, daughter, have you considered what this means? Daniel will age and die while you are still young. You will have perhaps 60 or 70 years with him if you are fortunate, then centuries alone with the memory. I know, Kalara said, and her voice broke slightly. I have thought of nothing else for days. But mother, would you trade away the years you had with father, even knowing he would eventually leave you? Yeah, would you choose not to love him to avoid the pain of loss? The Empress was silent for a long moment. No, I would not. She crossed to Kalara and took her daughter's hands. But I am your mother. I want to protect you from pain. You cannot protect me from living, Kalara said gently. And Daniel has taught me that a short time filled with genuine love is worth more than centuries of safety without it. Before her mother could respond, Chancellor Vornis entered without knocking, his face flushed with anger. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion, but this cannot wait. The Council has received disturbing news. There is a proposal, already supported by several noble houses, for Princess Kalara's marriage. Kalara felt her stomach drop. What proposal? Lord Thaxon of House Meridian has formally requested your hand. And he offers a merger of his family's mining interests with the royal holdings, plus political support for the Empress's reforms. The Council is seriously considering accepting. No, Kalara said flatly. I will not marry Lord Thaxon. I do not love him. I barely know him. Love is not a requirement for royal marriages, Vornis said stiffly. This alliance would strengthen the Empire considerably. Then find another way to strengthen it, Kalara shot back. I made a vow that I would choose my own path. I intend to keep it. Your vow was childish rebellion, Vornis said harshly. It is time you accepted your responsibilities. My responsibility is to serve the Empire, Kalara said, her voice rising. I have done that through my diplomatic work, through risking my life at Thesson Major, through building an alliance with humanity that will benefit us for generations. I will not throw away my happiness for a marriage that serves only political convenience. The Empress held up her hand for silence. Chancellor, leave us. I will speak with my daughter privately. Vornis bowed stiffly and departed. When he was gone, the Empress said quietly, Kalara, if you refuse this marriage, you must offer the Council an alternative. They will not accept simple refusal. Then I will offer them, Daniel, Kalara said. A marriage alliance with the human diplomatic corps would be far more valuable than mining rights from House Meridian. Her mother's eyes widened. You would truly marry the human? Make him your consort? If he will have me, Kalara said. Yes. The next day, Kalara found Daniel in the palace gardens where they had spent so many afternoons together. He was examining the Thessar bloom that her grandmother had planted, now beginning to fade as its brief flowering period ended. Kailara, he said, smiling when he saw her. But his smile faded when he saw her expression. What has happened? She told him everything. About the council's marriage proposal, about Lord Thaxon, about her decision to offer an alternative. When she finished, Daniel was quiet for a long time. You are asking me to marry you, he said finally. I am offering you a choice, Kalara corrected. I will not force you into anything. I know the complications. You would have to leave Earth, live in a court full of politics and intrigue, become part of a world so different from your own. And there is the matter of our lifespans. I know what I'm asking is difficult. Daniel took her hands in his. Kalara, when Lisa died, I thought my heart had died with her. I believed I would never feel that kind of connection again. But you have shown me I was wrong. What I feel for you is different from what I felt for Lisa, but it is no less real, no less powerful. Then you will marry me? Kalara asked, hardly daring to hope. On one condition, Daniel said, that we do this as equals, not as princess and consort, but as partners. That we build something together, the way we did at Thesson Major. Tears filled Kalara's eyes. Yes, partners, always. They embraced, and for the first time since falling in love, Kalara felt no fear, only certainty that this was right. The wedding took place 2 months later in the palace gardens beneath the crystal spires. It was unlike any ceremony the Velthoran court had ever seen. They combined human and Velthoran traditions, creating something entirely new. Kalara wore robes that blended Velthoran purple with earth blue. Daniel wore formal attire that incorporated Velthoran silver threading. The ceremony included vows from both cultures, spoken first in Velthoran, then in English, then in a blend of both languages that symbolized their union. Petron served as Daniel's best man, barely able to contain his excitement. Kailara's sisters stood with her, and even they seemed moved by the genuine love evident between the couple. When the ceremony concluded, Empress Zyvera addressed the assembled guests. Today, we witness not just a marriage, but the beginning of a new era. My daughter has chosen to follow her heart, and in doing so, she has shown us that the strongest alliances are built not on political convenience, but on genuine respect and affection. The celebration lasted for 3 days. Humans and Velthorans danced together, shared food, and told stories. The barriers between species began to dissolve as individuals connected on personal levels. 1 year later, Kalara and Daniel stood in that same garden, looking out over the first fully operational joint colony. Thesson Major had become a symbol of cooperation, a thriving community where humans and Velthorans worked side by side. We did it, Daniel said, his arm around Kalara's waist. 12 successful colonies, with 8 more in planning stages. We did, Kalara agreed. And it started because you suggested we grow together instead of competing for space. No, Daniel corrected gently. You see, it started because you had the courage to break your vow when you found something worth choosing. Kalara smiled. My vow was not broken. It was transformed. I vowed never to be forced into marriage, and I kept that vow. I chose you freely, with my whole heart. And I chose you, Daniel said. Every day, I choose you again. They stood together as the sun set, watching ships arrive and depart from the colony. Each ship carried more people willing to take a chance on cooperation, on building something new. Kylara knew the future held challenges. Daniel's life would be brief compared to hers. There would be political opposition, cultural misunderstandings, and difficulties neither could yet imagine. But they would face those challenges together, as partners, as equals, and as two people who had found in each other something precious and rare. Her vow had been about choosing her own path, and the path she had chosen led to Daniel, to love, to a future filled with possibility. It was, she thought, the best choice she had ever made. In the distance, the Thessar bloom her grandmother had planted so long ago had finished flowering. Its petals had fallen, but new seeds had formed. In 10 years, those seeds would bloom again, continuing the cycle her grandmother had started 2 centuries ago. Some things, Kylara realized, were worth the wait. And some things, like love, were worth every risk. She looked at Daniel, her husband, her partner, her choice. And she knew that whatever time they had together, whether 60 years or 600, would be enough. Because they would spend it growing together, like companion plants in a garden, each one stronger because of the other. And that was the beginning of everything.